Hello, everyone. Good day to you all, and welcome to another Year 6 Geography lesson. Okay, let's start. So, as usual, I would like you to bring your copybooks or a small copybook next to you, write today's date, and we'll go through the revision from the previous lesson. Just these three simple questions. Okay, so the first one would be describe the differences of the coasts in England. Second one would be write three facts about Dunwich, Suffolk. And the last question would be, what is land reclamation? Okay, so let's start today's lesson then. So in today's lesson, we'll be talking about using the coast. So besides being used for holidays and leisure, coasts also provide us with some of our food and electricity and certain fuels and minerals. Okay, so fish and shellfish are important human foods, and many of them are caught in the shallow waters along coasts. And almost every coastal village has some fishing boats that supply local needs. Okay, so fish are caught using small nets or lines with baited hooks, just like the ones you see on TV. If any of you are familiar with Tom and Jerry, these small little hooks, these are the ones they're talking about. Okay, and shellfish such as crabs and lobsters, are caught in baited traps on the bottom of the sea. Okay? And some of the fish we eat come from the deep oceans far from land. Large fishing boats or trawlers sail from the ports on the coast to catch these fish. And some deep sea trawlers bring their catch back to the port to sell, but may pass their catches to factory ships at sea. And on the factory ships, the fish are processed and frozen while still at the sea. And this allows or gives way for the trawlers to stay at the sea for weeks or even months at a time. The picture you see is on page 38 of your books. As you can see, it shows the ships and it shows the process of how this is done, the drifting, the trawling, and the pursening, everything. Okay? And here we have fish farming. So, some fish are found in sheltered bays, inlets, and estuaries in special fish farms. Shellfish, such as crabs, oysters, mussels, and prawns, and certain fish, such as salmon, sea bass, grouper, and tilapia, are farmed in different parts of the world. The picture on your right is also an example of a fish farm that rears salmon in an inlet along the Norwegian coast. You can also take a look at it at page 38 of your books. And here we have oil and gas. We spoke about this plenty of times. So we all know that much of the world's oil and natural gas is pumped from the rocks of the seabed. Okay, so basically from the accumulation of dead organisms in the seabed. And special platforms or rigs are used to drill wells down to the oil or gas. It is then taken ashore by pipeline or a tanker ship. And the oil is sent to a refinery where it is processed into petrol, diesel oil, or heating oil and other valuable fuels and materials. Okay, so let me just say this again. The oil that is found beneath the seabed, it is taken ashore by pipeline or a tanker ship, and it is then sent to a refinery where it is slowly being processed into the different parts of oil, which are petrol, and there's diesel oil, there's heating oil, and there's other sorts of valuable fuels and materials. Okay? And here we have electricity. So, the world's first power station to use tidal energy to produce electricity was built in northern France. That's a very fun fact. And some countries are trying to use the energy of waves to produce electricity. And there are power stations that use coal, oil, gas, which are fossil fuels. And then you have nuclear fuels to produce electricity along the coasts of many countries. And these power stations use seawater to cool their machines and to make the steam that turns the generators, which then produces the electricity. Coasts being windy are good sites for the wind turbines that produce electricity. Okay. And here we have salt. The picture that you see before you is on page 39 of your geography books. It shows the salt pans in France. So seawater contains valuable minerals, and one of the most important of which is salt. And in some countries with a warm climate, seawater is pumped into large open air ponds called spit pans. Okay, make sure you remember this word, spit pans. So in countries with a warm climate, seawater is pumped into a large open air pond, which is called a spit pan. Okay, and the seawater can then evaporate in the sun, leaving only the salt behind. And the salt can then be collected and sold. Okay, so the seawater will be evaporated by the sun. You all know the definition of evaporation. Okay, and then it leaves the salt behind in the water, and then the salt can then eventually be collected and sold. All right, that's great. Another fun fact on your book, which I forgot to add in the presentation, is that fish farming began in China about 55,000 years ago. And a common carp were grown in ponds on silk farms and were fed to the young silkworms. Wow, can you believe that? You can check out this fact on page 39, just below the last paragraph that talks about salt. Okay? That's your lesson for today, year 6. It's rather short. It's not too difficult. You can go through the pages again. You can read it again. I didn't want to talk too much because it really isn't that complicated. And I know you have the potential in you and the intelligence in you to figure it out and to understand it fully. But however, in the unlikely scenario of you not understanding this lesson, feel free to send me a message on Seesaw, or you can go through this lesson again. And for your homework, I'd like you to answer page 38 on your workbook. Okay? I hope you enjoyed this lesson, year 6. Take care, stay safe, and hope to see you all soon. Goodbye.